on, people. So I guess this is technically classed as a 2023 Aprilia Tuareg 660. Tuareg is a kind of desert nomad. Very good name, I like Tuareg. And the Aprilia 660 is used in the Torino Street Fighter, and it's used in the RS sports bike model as well. And slightly different tunes, slightly different gearing, slightly different fuel maps and all that good stuff. I'm not going to go through the full specs. Those videos bore me to tears. You can look on the website if you want to know how much pressure to put in the tyres. The one thing I will say is that I've just literally got my Multistrada, which is literally twice the power of this, but of course it's also a heavier bike as well. And this is a little bit heavier than the other versions of the Aprilia, purely because it has more equipment. It has like a nice little protective fairing, and it has some nice features. Got cruise control here on the left. You've got a mode button here. You can change mode. I don't know if you see that: urban, off-road, individual, and explore. Explore is basically pseudocode for sport, and this comes on kind of, you know, dual purpose tyres. It's obviously got a kind of skinnier, taller front wheel, being an adventure bike, but it steers pretty well and feels pretty nice. One thing I do love is the sound of this engine. This is an inline twin and parallel twin, as they say. And you know, 80 horsepower feels pretty useful. I always think 80 horsepower is what you need on the road, really. You don't need, you know, anything less than that starts feeling a bit gutless after a while. Anything more than that, it's just convenient, and you need it if you don't know how to ride. If you know how to ride, 80 horsepower is plenty. Mike the Bike, if you're old enough to remember Mike Howard, he always said that 80 horsepower is ample. And some would say that a lighter, smaller bike with less power that you have to ride is more fun than a big, heavy bike with lots of power that kind of rides itself. And I think there's you know, there's some merit in that, I would say. It certainly feels very pleasant, and you know, we're riding with some big bikes today, some big fast bikes, lots of Multistradas, GSAs and stuff. If I was riding this bike, there's no way I'd be left behind by the group who are back there having a lovely cup of coffee. And I'm just enjoying this. This is actually owned by a friend, Ted's. It's available to pre-order on the website, so I guess technically they're not even available in the US yet, but somehow he's managed to get one. So all inquiries to him as to how he managed that. But he traded an L twin Multistrada, so not the current V4S but the old one, for this. He was having a few problems with that bike, actually. I think they eventually sorted it out, but he was fed up with it and decided to go with this. He'd had a Torino R, the big version previously, but he's kind of turned his attention more to kind of middleweights. He has got a Scrambler 1200 XE, but apart from that, he's of the opinion, the opine, that a lot of mature riders are often getting to now, that the so-called middleweights, the kind of 900, you know, the kind of, well, anything from kind of 650 to 1000cc, say, maybe we'll even sneak in the Africa Twin at 1100cc. Those bikes are often offer a lot of value for the money and plenty of performance for the road at a very keen price, and are often more fun because they're lighter. So yeah, they have a fairly universal appeal. A big bump in the road there. I would say the forks initially felt very soft on this, but actually it's giving a nice plush ride quality. There are times in the corner where you can kind of feel that front wheel is a little bit skinnier, a little bit taller, but it's no bad thing. It's no real deal breaker or anything. The back feels very planted, but the shock feels very firm, there isn't much going on in terms of rebound damping. I'm quite a heavy guy, about 240 pounds, and you know, it feels firm to me. So if you're a lighter guy, this shock is definitely going to feel firm. You may want to change it for a lighter spring, or turn down the preload a little bit. The clocks aren't massive by today's standards, but they are very, very clear, and even for my tired old eyes, I can read everything on it very clearly in terms of my trip and gear selection, the revs I'm doing, and speed. And it's a beautiful blue colour scheme. I think this is the best colour scheme. It comes in 3 different colour schemes. One is kind of black and gold. I can't remember the other off the top of my head, you'll have to check the website. And then there's this kind of classic-y blue-white colour scheme with a splash of red, I think. And this is the one to have, I would say. This one is the one that looks like it's trying to ape a Paris-Dakar bike from the late 80s, 90s, and it looks great. And adventure bikes are obviously getting super popular, and in this group you've kind of got the 10 Array 700, which is kind of the bargain of the bunch in base form rather than the rally raid form, and it's a little bit softer than this bike, has a very good engine with that CP2. I would say this feels a little bit more dynamic, a little bit sportier, got a few more bells and whistles, and has traction control, which is a deal breaker for some people like myself. I always want a bike with traction control, which the Yamaha unfortunately doesn't have, even in the expensive Rally Raid version, I think. But it also kind of, again, slightly higher price point but slightly more premium and more performance, is the Triumph Tiger 900, and that has a fair bit more horsepower, probably kind of over 20 horsepower more for a similar kind of weight, I think, off the top of my head. So if you really want to do long tours, maybe the Triumph is the best bet. This is kind of halfway house. I would happily take this off-road. It doesn't feel too heavy for me. I'm fairly experienced off-road, and certainly compared with my bike, this is much more manageable off-road. So I would take it off-road. But the Triumph is probably more for like everyday use with 10,000 mile service intervals, probably a better pillion bike and touring bike. The Yamaha is at a particularly good price point for a very reliable bike. If you really want to go off-road in this category, you really need the 890 KTM, of course, and preferably the R rather than the road-going S. But this is kind of, you know, this has its place up there, and I think for its marketplace, it's nice. It's nice, smooth delivery. I'm not feeling any real issues or concerns. And the parallel twin is pretty nice, and Aprilia are making pretty reliable bikes these days that are nicely screwed together. So if you've got a dealer near you, I'd urge you to take a test ride, and hopefully you'll enjoy the ride and can make your own mind up. Alright, ride careful, ride often, ride on.
Hey you, if you want to become one of the Ride On people, don't forget to subscribe. Ride often, ride carefully, ride on.